Welcome back for a brand new episode of Jory Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host Jory, and today we are once again having an NFL overload for you guys. In the NFL, we break down the AFC East and the North. We go through recent transactions, and we have our Titans talk. In the NBA, we pay attention to James Harden's foolishness. And then we turn our attention to the WNBA and once again play catch up. Stay tuned at the end for Jory's timeout session. So once again, we have a full episode planned. So tune in, turn your volume up, and let's get it. Starting with the meat and potatoes of today's episode, the NFL. Today, I gotta kind of stick up for Mac Jones in our AFC East and North breakdowns. Plus, is the time really ticking on the Bills? Then we have this week's Titans talk, and then there's some movement around the league. So, like I said earlier, we got a full segment, so tune in. All right, so in the NFL, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do our AFC East outlook. We're going to cover the AFC East and North, but I'm going to start with the East. And the first team I'm going to talk about is the Buffalo Bills because I'm part of the crowd that thinks that the Buffalo Bills are very overrated at times. Like, I know that they're a good team. It's just that they done almost nothing with the opportunities that they've earned. So how good are they really? So some of these questions I have for the team, I'm going to kind of answer it, whatever. We're going to get right into it. Like, a lot of people, this is a debate around for a lot of people. Like, is it a make or break year for the team? Which, if you ask me, is yes. Because just take a look at the environment right now, especially in Buffalo. Because much to people's dismay, much to the people in Buffalo's dismay, we're not believing that whatever happened between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs wasn't small. That was not small. And if you don't think that they're on a ticking time bomb, you're delusional. Despite what everybody wants you to believe about that situation, it was bigger than what it was. It was big. It was a bigger situation. Otherwise, all of that dramatics don't happen. So, I believe that the Bills are on full Stephon Diggs tantrum alert. Josh Allen needs to cut. This is his year to cut the recklessness out. Like, it is his year to cut this crap out. Like the turnovers, the foolish turnovers. And maybe this goes into play calling. And maybe they need to call better plays and have Josh Allen be more of a pocket passer instead of a wrecking ball. Make it make sense. But they need to develop their running backs instead of using their quarterback as a running back. Because this is not getting them anywhere, but in trouble. Because they keep playing Josh Allen the way they're playing, and Josh Allen keeps playing the way that he's playing, is on both ends here. You're going to have an issue where health is going to become an issue. He's going to start getting hurt. There's only so many licks to the chops you can take before you get like, no. And something's got to give. And I don't want for that young man, as much as I don't like him, like his team, because they're wasting time right now. When I mean they're wasting time and they're wasting space, it's like they keep doing this all year. They look horrible for a piece of the year. Then they go back to form. And then they can't beat Cincy and they can't beat Kansas City. They can beat anybody else but them. Like, don't know what that issue is, but it is a make or break year. And if you don't think so, that's on you. But I'm going to think you're a little crazy because the writing is on the wall. Because if Stephon Diggs don't get enough catches, he's going to act a fool. If the Bills don't win enough games, he's going to act a fool. If they get booted out the playoffs early again, he's going to act a fool. So what are we really playing here for? And then you have, it might be time to blow it up. Well, not even blow it up. I'm not even going to go there. This year don't go to plan. It'll be some dysfunction going on in that organization. And I'm willing to argue that. Because how many times do we have to sit here and see the same thing when it comes to the Bills? And sit here and pick them to go to the Super Bowls. Like, quit picking them to go to the Super Bowls because it ain't happening. It's just not happening. So, there's my little rant on that. Next, the realistic concerns, doubts, and stakes. I already kind of outlined it. So, what's at stake for Buffalo? You already have a Stephon Diggs who may or may not be happy to be there low-key, even though he acts like everything's okay. We don't know. So, you're already walking on eggshells when it comes to that. That's a stake because he's a ticking time bomb. He could just flip his crap at any time. And act like, you know what? You see how he, like, y'all know how he did Minnesota. You know what he did just this year. And I understand that with Stephon Diggs, a lot of people chalk that up to a competitive edge or whatnot. But at some time, you got to regain control of your emotions. And whatever him and Josh Allen had going on earlier in the summer, it was bigger than what it was. And he got emotional and stormed out. Or was told to leave. Like, that situation is going to linger. Especially in a loss. So they better do something better with that roster. The way it's currently constructed. And one thing I'm concerned is, I know that they have very good tight end production when it comes to, is it Dawson Knox? Yeah, Dawson Knox. But who's going to be on the other side of Stephon Diggs? They do have Gabriel Davis. I think he's more of a tight end. But even though Diggs requires a good amount of the touches, like a good majority of the touches, you got to have somebody on the other side of him. That's what's been killing Buffalo as well, because it's been Diggs. And if it's not Diggs, Josh Allen is going to do something with his feet. He's going to run the ball, something to Dawson Knox, to Gabriel Davis or whatever his name is. That's what we see from Buffalo. We know that's what we're going to get. So you need somebody on the other side of Stephon Diggs. And the running game is a concern. Like, I knew they weren't going to go get Dalvin Cook because they still have his brother that they need to develop. Why haven't they been using their running backs like a running back should instead of using their quarterback as a bowling ball? Like, that's your running back's job, not your quarterback's. And my biggest concern is Josh Allen and the turnovers. I might have been harsh on Dak Prescott, but I'm equally as harsh about the turnovers on Josh Allen. Because a lot of his turnovers come because of sheer recklessness. Excuse my talking. But sheer recklessness. A lot of those interceptions come. Yeah, you got the tip passes, the ones that aren't their fault, the ones that the receiver should have caught. But a lot of those interceptions have been bad interceptions, and they were due to recklessness. So, the biggest concern for this team that I have would happen to be Josh Allen. Can he control that recklessness? Can they play call to kind of make plays and be creative in that type of aspect to type of rein that in, because it's gonna be an issue soon. They got to rein that in. My realistic outlook for the Bills is like they will be first or second in that division. I feel like they will be first or second. Now, if everything goes not to plan and they slip to third, I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't see them coming last. I see them being in the playoffs. They'll be first or second in that division. Period. Now, all of you Patriots fans or any Patriots enthusiasts, we're going to talk about your team and some of the issues I have with it. One, Mac Jones. The mystique of Mac Jones. And I'm going to ask and answer a few questions, and you can kind of give me your own type of analysis on it. But what is his true ceiling and floor? Why does he catch so much flack? I got an answer for that one. And how far can New England go with Mac Jones? And then we're going to talk about some other issues, like the issue I had with Bill O'Brien and some other stuff. But Mac Jones. Contrary to some people's belief, and Mac Jones, to me, catches a lot of flack. Because I see a lot of Mac Jones slander, and I don't like it. And maybe it's because I have this Alabama bias, and he's a Bama boy, and he came from the University of Alabama. That I know that Mac Jones is a solid quarterback, contrary to people's beliefs. He doesn't have a noodle arm. He has the arm strength. He can get the ball where it needs to be, i.e. his rookie year. He can make and progress his reads. He's competent. Sometimes he makes the wrong decisions, but he's competent. He's a solid, competent quarterback who's been plagued by mismanagement and dysfunction early on in his career. He will make a bounce back. People really overdo it. Like, Mac is a dude given the right opportunities to grow and develop his confidence. I believe he can be a borderline great quarterback. And maybe that's just my Bama bias talking, but he will be fine. He will be fine. I bet you New England, if they don't have a good offensive line, they fixed it. I haven't known New England to have a sorry, pathetic offensive line. So he should be well protected. I'm not so sold on his receivers. We'll go on that spill in just a second. But he's made do for what they've had. And that's the Patriot way, because they don't draft receivers well. But that's a part of my receiver spill about this team. Okay? The biggest question, like, what is his true ceiling and floor? Is like, when it comes to his floor, whatever that was last year, it may be a little bit worse. It could always get worse. So just don't ever say it can't get worse, because it can always get worse. So whatever he went through last year, tack on a little bit more. That's his floor. And half of that wasn't even his fault. We'll go into that in just a second. But his ceiling, an above average quarterback, he could probably, I believe that if he really worked at it and the system is really tailored to him, he could crack the top 10, maybe. Top 12. Don't clip this and get me on here trying to make me sound like I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about. But Mac Jones is a good quarterback. You saw what he could do for his rookie year. What he would have done his second year was improve had it not been dysfunctional and mismanaged. But we're not going to talk about that anymore. Mac is not a scrub. Don't let this outlandish foolishness help you. Don't let this outlandish slander of Mac Jones fool you or delude you. He's not a scrub. I thoroughly believe that Mac Jones could lead a Patriots team to a longer playoff run. Mind you, they went to the playoffs his rookie year. Come on. He is capable. And look, people get on about mobile quarterbacks. You don't have to have the most mobile quarterback. I understand we are in the era of Lamar Jacksons and Action Jacksons and ones who could be power runners and power throwers and all of that other stuff, but he can scoot and scramble when needs to be. He is capable and will use his leg. He's not a power runner, but he can scoot around and scamper when he needs to. And he catches so much flack for last year. When if you really think about it, when most of that wasn't even his fault. You had a defensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator floundering around at OC looking goofy. I mean, the Patriots look straight stupid at times. And I hated it. And then his head coach kept switching quarterbacks like they switched underwear. His confidence was shook and shocked, and there's no doubt in my mind, and maybe again it's the Bama bias talking, but there's no doubt in my mind that Mac will regain his footing. Bill O'Brien. Now, I mean, this is a mixed bag. One hand, you have familiarity with the system. Once again, Bill O'Brien originally started coaching with Belichick, came from the Belichick tree, so he's back home, so it's familiar. Correct? On the other hand, his play calling can be kind of BS and predictable. And I'm calling it as it is because I am an Alabama fan, and I watched him go down there and stink up my offense. I mean, I was RPO'd out, and it's kind of predictable, and I'm sick of it. Now, granted, Bill O'Brien will make that offense more normal after last year's Franken offense. Yes, I called it a Franken offense because it was put together by bits and pieces, and it wasn't really cohesive. There was no rhythm. It was a hot mess. But because of that system, he's used to running that system, and Mac Jones has been in that system, it'll be a bit more familiar for Mac Jones. And vice versa. Mac Jones will probably have a little bit more trust in Bill O'Brien than he did in the last year. In the two that were juggling the offensive play calling responsibilities. They were juggling it and they were fumbling it. They weren't doing a good job. Let's just get that out there. Whatever that was, he'll have more trust in Bill O'Brien, and Bill O'Brien will have more trust in him. Last year, they didn't trust each other. So I've got to give it a go visually. I have to see it. Me knowing what I'm going to see from Bill O'Brien from his previous play calling experiences, especially the ones in college, it's giving me a but this is a new thing. He's back in the NFL, is back in his old system that he kind of runs. So, and I still believe that Bill O'Brien can be a good offensive coordinator. But the second we get elementary, predictable play calling, I'm out. I am out. And for the wide receivers, they're a mixed bag as well. I don't love them, but they're decent, right? I do like Kendrick Bourne, but he's inconsistent, though, when it comes to separation. Juju Smith-Schuster is Juju Smith-Schuster. We know what he is. Average. He needs somebody worthwhile on the other side. And we'll get on that in just a second. And he has what I like to call selective catchability issues. Devontae Parker is nice and fast, but what has he done in New England? Now, granted, him and Juju on the opposite sides with a competent OC And an improved Mac Jones could be something not to play with, to me. That could be a low-key nice duo. Have them on the Dark Horse squad. But yeah, I don't really love their receivers. But they're horrible at drafting receivers. And they've made do, and they've been successful. So I feel like it'll be one of those, the receivers, it just is what it is at this point. We know that they're never going to draft well at receivers, at the receiver position, as long as Bill Belichick is the GM and the head coach. So there's that. So, like, my realistic expectations and outlook for the Patriots is, like, I feel like, because it's weird, they're going to either be third or fourth in the division. It depends on what the Jets are going to look like. That's what I'm saying. It really depends on what the New York Jets are going to look like. They could be third or fourth. They could be on the outside looking in, but they could also play really well and surprisingly be first or second. I'm not so sure what I'm going to get from this team. Just because last year was an absolute dumpster fire. So I really don't know. I have them as finishing third in the division. Honestly. My next team we're going to talk about, ironically, is the New York Jets. My questions and concerns, is it too much hype too soon? Yes. Like, this is the Jets we're talking about. I understand that Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers and he's a bad man. Blah, blah, blah. I get it. Like, I really do. I honestly get it. And I wish we would stop saying that. He hasn't been a bad man for dang near a decade. Minus the 4 MVPs. What has that man done in the playoffs? We talk about the Cowboys. Let's talk about Mr. Rodgers. So, I understand that he's a phenomenal thrower of the football. I get it. He's very talented. He's accomplished. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He's still that dude. But on this team, let me rephrase that sentence. This is just a preseason. Like, we've been going on about the Jets since the season ended last February. And then when they really got Aaron Rodgers, the hype really kicked up. So, did they fix the offensive line? No. That's the liability. Mekhi Becton can't stay healthy to save his life. And he over here crying with some entitlement, talking about he won his spot and da-da-da. That's why Saleh told him that he needed to earn it, because he hasn't been able to stay on the field. Get on the field and shut up. Like, you don't think Aaron Rodgers isn't going to act a fool once he starts getting hit? Because it's coming. The defenses that they're going to have to play, like, I know they're going to have to play, let me pull up the Jets schedule real quick. Because one second. Off the rip, they have the Bills. So, when you're playing, and then week 2, they got the Cowboys. So, they're playing defenses the first 2 weeks of the season that can get after the quarterback. So, let's hold our horses here, because their offensive line is horrible, and their first 2 games out the gate are the Bills and the Cowboys. They could be 0-2 simply due to the fact of the offensive line. Now, Aaron Rodgers is what Aaron Rodgers is. And if receivers start dropping balls, we all know what happens with that. Like, that man don't even, like, once you start dropping balls, it's like he's looking for an excuse to not throw you another one. So I'm not telling that might be on the bingo card of happening this year. Hopefully Breece Hall can stay healthy. When he gets 100%, he can stay like that and he can return to form. But then again, we're talking about running the ball like they have a solid offensive line. They don't. That offensive line can really ruin that whole offense. I know as a Titans fan because my offensive line ruined my team last year. So I believe it is a little bit too much hype too soon for this team. Like, we got to have this. And if we're going to continue to look at the schedule real quick, like, let me pull it up again. Because I just said weeks 1 and week 2. They got the Patriots week 3. The Patriots got a nice defensive line. That defense is projected to be top 10. Week 4. They got the Chiefs. Like, the Jets do not have an easy schedule. They're playing these defenses that can get after the quarterback. And then week 5, they have the Broncos. Now, offensively, they might get a break then, but they might get a break with the Broncos. But they're playing these defenses that can get after the quarterback. So once Aaron starts getting put on the ground and receivers start dropping balls, we're going to have a whole different story. So let's hold our horses when it comes to the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets. Thank you. Robert Saleh. Now, I've heard this little rumor, these little grumblings on Twitter about whether or not Robert Saleh should be on the hot seat. And I don't think so. How many years has he been the head coach of this team? And what has he done to that defense? I know Zach Wilson is a hot mess, but Zach Wilson needs to decide whether or not Zach Wilson is willing to take the next step. But we're saying trying to put this man on the grill here. For what? Last year, his running back got hurt. Your quarterback was as good as a hot sack of potatoes. I could have put on pads and did better than that. And then you had the whole quarterback carousel, which is an ingredient for a coach getting fired. But that's not his fault. Zach Wilson was not ready. They wasted a pick on that man. They made that man rich off of a throw. I wish I could get rich off of a throw. So, I don't think that seeing that what Saleh has done to the Jets team, because they're not being looked at as just the Jets. Oh, they're the Jets. They're saying that the Jets are a threat. And how long, and I'm 22 years old, how long has it been since we've been able to say that the Jets are a legitimate threat? Excuse me. How long has it been? Like, if we're being real here, he's coming in to changing the culture, and he's struggling to change that offense around because they made a bad pick at quarterback. That's not fireable. Now, if this Aaron Rodgers experiment turns out to be a complete fail, we might have a different discussion, but I don't think he should be on the hot seat right now, and if you do, you're absurd. And the Aaron Rodgers effect. They didn't want to do Hard Knocks. They pretty much, I don't think the Jets team likes this much publicity and people talking about them. They're overdoing it when it comes to Sauce Gardner. And that's the Aaron Rodgers effect right there. So this could be either a master plan or a master distraction. Period, point blank. I believe that Robert Saleh has instilled discipline in his team so that it won't be a distraction. But come on now. Come on. So, my realistic outlook for and expectations for the Jets. Now, I just went through their first 5 games. They could be 1-4. They could be 0-5. They could be 2-4. 2-3. They could be 3-2. They could be 5-0, which I really don't see happening. But if we're being completely honest, I believe that this team will be middle of the pack because I'm not sure about that offensive line. And therefore, if your offensive line is not up to standard, your whole offense will be thrown off. And it's not going to be a win if it's going to be win. So, I'm going to have them 3rd or 4th, most likely. I kind of like the Patriots better than the Jets because the Patriots have more of a set system. So I'll put them 3rd in the division. I'll put the Jets 4th, but they could easily be 1st. So let's not get ourselves clear here. I'm not saying that they're going to be finished last. I'm saying that it's a possibility that they could be last, and it's a possibility that they could be 1st. This division is very hard to kind of predict because any team could win that division. This is a hard division now. It's not one of those where the Patriots were just running things for 20 years straight again. No, that time is over. This division is wide open. I believe they could finish 1st. I believe this team could finish 4th. Who knows? Next, we're going to talk about the Dolphins. And I know that when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, things are going to be centered around Tua's health and his questionable health. Now, the very precarious situation when it comes to this is that he cannot get another concussion. Can we, please avoid another concussion? Because he had about 4 last year, and he shouldn't have played, right? They mismanaged that. And I'm glad that he took martial arts. And people are saying, I don't know how that's going to translate to da-da-da-da. I'm like, it's going to translate, bro. I took karate, and the way they teach you how to fall no matter what is that if you could keep your head off the ground and you can stop your neck from snapping back, it doesn't matter. At this point, with him, he needs to stop his head from colliding with the ground. That's the issue that we have at hand here. His head keeps going face first into the ground. Now, I don't know if that's a Tua issue or if that's an offensive line issue. You tell me. But the Miami Dolphins are a playoff team when Tua is healthy. And I believe that this year, with the training that he's had, because he's went through the whole jiu-jitsu training, they teach you how to break fall. That's what I was talking about. And maybe one day I'll have to get on camera and show you how it's done to see what I'm talking about. But it'll help. It'll help. Because if you're tackling me and I can just fall at will, I'm getting something free and I'm fighting. But that's not the conversation here. Conversation is how break falling translates to the NFL. The point of the break fall is to stop your head from hitting the ground, protect your brain. Protect yourself. Even when you're doing dangerous stuff. Protect yourself. Yeah, so defensive and offensive line. Now, that Miami defense with Christian Wilkins and Jalen Ramsey's hurt, I know he'll be back. I don't think he'll be back by week 1, but he'll be back soon. So, my biggest question when it comes to the Dolphins is their offensive line. Like I said, there's a reason why Tua kept getting hit. And he kept being on the ground. That offensive line has got to get better. It's got to do better. I don't know if it's going to, but that's a question. That really puts a kink into the Dolphins' plans if that offensive line is not up to par. Now, granted, I know that their defensive line in the past has struggled to get to the rusher, but I don't think that's going to be much of an issue once Jalen Ramsey comes back, because he can come off the edge as well, even though he is considered a safety, I believe. But what Jalen Ramsey brings to that defense is hard-hitting, an actual defense, and then he'll have Xavier Howard. What's his face? What's his name? Y'all know exactly who I'm talking about in that secondary. You have Christian Wilkins on the line. They have decent pieces. They just need to they have the pieces in place. The biggest question about Miami is, can Tua stay healthy? And the biggest question that should follow that is, can that offensive line keep Tua upright? Because that's what it's going to come down to. And I believe that this team is overlooked because of Tua's health. And it is such a big question. I believe it's underrated. I mean, we know what the potential is. I mean, people talk about Waddle all the time, but you got to think about it. Waddle and Tua have been teammates since college. That's chemistry that you don't mess with. And then you add Tyreek and you add to it. So, of course, yes, they're going to have the fireworks. We all know what that offense can do. Now, if they can get a little bit more production with the running game, bingo. I don't know why people think that the running back position isn't important. But I think I've had my running back rant. I'm not afraid to do another one, but that's neither here or there. But realistic expectations for this team is, I believe that this team is going to finish top 2 in the division. If things go haywire, they could be 4th. Or if the other teams are just really good, they could be last, 3rd, or last. But this team, the way that it's currently constructed and how well things look right now, even though their previous preseason game versus the Falcons, they didn't look very good. Skylar Thompson is not it, even as a backup quarterback. Even though he started in a playoff game, which makes no sense, Skylar Thompson is not that good. So, my realistic expectations and outlook for this team is that they finish 1st or 2nd in the division, and that they will be a playoff team. And now, we're going to cover the AFC North. First, we're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Excuse me. Hold on. Let me get myself together. First, we're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Questions and concerns. Lamar's year to prove it, which it is. It's definitely Lamar's year to prove it. I don't want to hear any more excuses coming from Lamar or the Ravens about why they can't do what they need to do. You've got weapons, albeit they're injury-prone weapons, but you have the receivers. You have the defense, apparently. You replaced your your offensive coordinator. Now, here's the thing, and I just want people to understand that don't expect this Ravens offense to kick off right off the bat. Don't expect that. Even though, yes, it is Lamar's year to prove it, and it is his year to stay healthy through the whole season, not just for 3/4 of the season. They need you for the whole season. Otherwise, when you're gone in the playoffs, they get curb stomped, and it's a first-round exit every time. And you can go back to what happened last year. And the year before that. Maybe, yeah. But this is Lamar's year to prove it. He's going to have to prove that he could throw outside the numbers and inside the numbers, because he's not proven to be very efficient actually throwing the ball, which he's a quarterback. He's required to do. So the fact that he's not good throwing outside the numbers, and the way that this league is going towards, you gotta be efficient outside the numbers. It's concerning, and it's his year to prove all of that to be false. Yes. So that being said, back to the original second point, which was that this offense is probably going to take time. Now, we need to be very patient. Like, patient is a word that we all need to have. Like, they have a whole new offensive coordinator. A whole new one. Like, they have Todd Monken now. So, This offense, I feel like and it's something similar, like it's tailored to Lamar, whatnot. This offense, do not expect it. Like, if you're expecting a whole brand new offense implemented by a new offensive coordinator to be mastered by week 1, it's not feasible. It's very asinine to think and believe that. So we need to hold our horses and be patient when it comes to the Ravens as well, because this is a new offense. It's going to take some time. They're going to get it together eventually. When they get it together, I need that to happen like in week 12. And it's probably because it's the Ravens, it's probably not going to happen until like week 10 or week 12. So we need to have patience. And my biggest concern about this team is whether or not they can stay healthy. Because for the past few years, it's been injury. Especially on Lamar end. Your defense can't stay healthy either. So the biggest thing about this team is, can Lamar get his arm going outside the numbers? We know what he can do with Mark Andrews. But with a wide receiver, I would like to see more of that. And he's been in the league for 5 years. So we shouldn't be having these questions at 5 years. Usually, we know what quarterbacks are by year 3. But we keep giving Lamar leniency because the Ravens haven't surrounded him by talent. That's the quote-unquote narrative that people want you to believe. But they've had some receivers over there. Lamar just hasn't taken advantage of it. But either way you look at it, it hasn't worked so far. So I don't know why we're in year 5 and we don't know what Lamar Jackson is. Even though after this season, it is going to be clear as day what Lamar is, especially if he don't throw the ball well this year. So, realistic outlook and expectations, I believe that the Baltimore Ravens will be, I feel like they'll be second or third. They're not going to win the division. I can concede that division to the Bengals. But I can see that it's second or third. Now, if the wheels fall off, it could be fourth. And the way I feel about the Steelers could probably reinforce the fact that it could be Cincy and then everybody else in that division to fight it for themselves. But even though Cincy, I have some questions about, because I don't know if Joe Burrow is going to be there week 1. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're talking about the Ravens. My thing is, they're either going to be second, but I feel like they're going to finish second in the division. They probably will make the playoffs. But what I want to see here is how far they go in the playoffs. Because they haven't been to an AFC Championship game since 2011, 2012. So that was the year they won the Super Bowl. So, and if they don't get there, whose fault is it this time? Harbaugh's? That's another conversation for another time. Next team. We're going to talk about the Bengals. And much like, even though I said in the division that I believe that it's going to be Cincy and anybody else, they still have concerns too. Like, one, is Joe Burrow going to end up missing games? I don't think he's going to miss very many games, but I feel like that if I'm a Bengals fan, I'm not wanting Joe Burrow to come back until he's completely healthy, because I don't want risk to re-aggravate anything. So if that takes to week 1 or 2 or 3, they'll be fine. They might have a loss or 2, but anything past 4 games, they're in trouble. But just because of how this division is set up, because I feel like everybody's improved when it comes to this AFC North division. So, I don't think that the Bengals need to be on high alert yet, but if this injury is lingering and it keeps bothering him, yes. But no, I don't feel like he's going to miss many games. Now, injuries as a team for the Bengals are starting to become an issue, but I feel like the way that they're set up, you could put somebody else in there and they'll be just fine because they got Joe Burrow. So I don't feel like they'll have an issue when it comes to figuring out stuff with injuries because they have good depth. But they also have a very interesting situation. They're one of their good defensive tackles. The one I like, I think he was on my top 10 IDL list. If you haven't listened to that episode, you should go back and listen to it. I might have to link it, but DJ Reader wants more money. He wants to get paid. That's a situation that we're gonna have to watch because what he does to that Cincinnati defense is pretty much invaluable, and they might want to take care of him, but they got to pay Joe Burrow. They probably got to get ready to pay Jamar Chase. I don't know about T. Higgins. Just took less money to stay with Cincy, I believe. Or was that Joe Mixon? That was Joe Mixon. I'm getting my Bengals mixed up. But Cincy is going to have a long list of contracts they need to pay out. DJ Reader is something that they're going to have to look for. They're going to have to look at. That's a situation that is not necessarily very important right now, but because he's entering a contract year, it's something that needs to be worth noted. Make sense? Makes sense. Got it good. Outlook and expectations, I feel like I said earlier when I was talking about the Ravens, that this Cincinnati Bengals team can and will win the division. They'll be number one in the division. They'll probably be top 2 in the conference, given everything goes well. Now, even if the wheels fall off, I don't see them not being a playoff team. Like, Joe Burrow would have to tear something for me to really sit here and say, oh, it's not happening this year. And I don't wish that on nobody. So, there's my outlook on that. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Some people may hate me, but I believe that Kenny Pickett is going to take the next step. We saw flashes of what he could do last year. They fixed that offensive line so he's not running for his life and he's not fighting defensive players because he got hit late. That they can run. They should be able to run the ball a lot better with Najee Harris. They fixed that offensive line. I just said that. George Pickens. George Pickens might be ready to really start making some noise. So this team, like this Steelers team, could be very much better than what people expect them to be. Now, like my biggest question with Pittsburgh is, are they being overlooked? Because they are a good team. And we all know what that defense entails when you have Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Then they signed, they added somebody else notable to that defense. But you know with Mike Tomlin, you're gonna get a tough defense. So that's a give, that's a God give. So Pittsburgh, with their wide receivers and tight ends and the improvements that they've made on the offensive end, Pittsburgh is a dark horse to be a playoff team, much less if Baltimore don't look well, like if Baltimore come out flat and it take them a minute to get that system in, I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh finished second in that division, even though they're projected to finish fourth. I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like the Steelers are being overlooked for once, and that's a shocker. Quite the shocker. And now for the Cleveland Browns. Will this team under Watson improve? Yes, they will. Will it be by much? No. Because I know that offensive line has been solid It wasn't very solid last year. Minus when Nick Chubb was running the football. So, the wide receivers I really don't necessarily care for. Deshaun Watson's also been throwing a lot of picks in practice. And you would think he'd be knocking some of that rust off right now. So it's a wait and see. I'm not particularly too keen on covering the Browns. I'm not a Deshaun Watson person. I've been through too much personally. So I just don't deal with the Browns. So there's that. I feel like if their defense gets any worse than what it was last year, it'll start to become a liability. And that's not I don't think that's what Kevin Stefanski wants. They have a solid offensive line. I feel like it's very questionable and inconsistent at times. And again, I don't like the wide receivers like that. Even though I used to be an Amari Cooper girl, but Amari Cooper do too much to be a high-end wide receiver too. I feel like they're going to be last in the division. Now, if they play the par and they get everything together, and Deshaun Watson is not rusty, but we also see regular season Deshaun Watson and we've seen playoff Deshaun Watson. So those are two different quarterbacks. The more you know. So I have them third. I have them fourth in the division. Simply, yeah. They're last in the division. Next, we're going to talk about my Tennessee Titans. And I have some concerns. My depth in the secondary is a little questionable. My depth in the O-line is definitely scaring me. But my starting offensive linemen with Aaron Brewer, Andre Dillard, Peter Skoronski, and the other two dudes, they're very solid. My offensive line is gelling, and I'm living for it. I'm living for it. Now, what I'm not living for is my backups missing tackles. Stop missing tackles. It's preseason. I should not be having to say this in a microphone. Stop missing tackles. And one thing I also didn't see, Mr. Josh Wild decided, and Chris Moore had his say into this segment, this part 2, dropping catches and fumbling. I put up with this last year. I'm not finna sit here and put up with Butterfingers for hands. No. And catch the ball. And don't be a liability after you get hit, because it's coming. Hold on to the ball. I'm not finna sit here and put up with stupid turnovers, like fumbles and tipped catchable passes. Even though, yes, that pass by Malik was a tad bit high. But you're 6'7". If you don't jump up there and get it, you had your hand on it. You should have bought it down. Like, that's just that. There's some positives, though. There are some positives. Like I said, my starting offensive line looks solid and they look sound. Malik Willis has improved. And my defense, my line, my depth, even though, yes, the Chicago Bears took all the depth, like my backups, they literally stocked their defensive line with my backups. I don't like that. But we're recovering from that. We've gotten some monsters back there. Rashad Weaver, look out for Rashad Weaver and Jaden Peavy. Another name to look for off my team, Arden Key. He's going to be a starter, though. I feel like he's going to be a starter. That man is too much. He's too much. But yeah, my defensive line, oof. But like I said, missing tackles. My backups have got to make the tackles. And Tajay Spears is running back too, without a shadow of a doubt, with no ACL. So any questions about him should be out the window. He's fine. And Vrabel giving coaches opportunities, I love this. Not just because he was a black man and is a person of color. He's a black man, and I love to see my black brothers winning, right? But just to acknowledge that this is a need and to put somebody out there for them to get their feet wet, for them to learn the nuances of coaching and play calling and calling timeouts and getting stuff in. It's very cool, and I love to see it because he's preparing that man for the next step, which is the head coaching spot. Next. We got our recent transactions in the NFL. We have Dalvin Cook to the Jets, which I do like. Kind of takes some of that strain off of Breece Hall. They don't have to rush Breece Hall to get back. So if Breece Hall comes back like week 4, week 5, they'll have Dalvin Cook. And even then, you could that's a running back tandem right there for the season. So I like that signing. Ezekiel Elliott to the Patriots. Contrary to belief, even though Zeke yet is about 1.5 yards in a cloud of dust, but he's great in short yardage. Of situations. He can pick up a blitz, and he's good at pass protection. He'll find himself on another team, which he did, which is the Patriots. He just can't run the ball like that very well. 1,000-yard rusher Zeke has long gone. That Zeke left as soon as it happened, but that's a solid signing. Zach Martin gets a new deal. You can keep Dak protected. So I don't want to hear any excuse when Dak starts throwing a whole bunch of picks again. Michael Walker to the Bears. I like that. Jonathan Taylor has returned to training camp because he was absent due to his ankle. Or maybe he was holding in. But I feel like Jonathan Taylor's best bet may be to go ahead and suit up and play. But I'm not finna tell him how to hold his cards right. Because even though he just wants out. Now, whenever I know that the NFL has a trade deadline in the season. If he suit up and ball out, and somebody come calling because they need a running back, ship him up out of there. Do right by you. Do right by your running back. Even though Irsay don't do right by nobody. But that's a long shot. Brock Purdy has been cleared to practice. So, what does that mean? Well, Brock Purdy is the starter. So, him being cleared to practice means he might be on track for week 1. It might take him a little bit to really get into the swing of things. But I don't know who's going to be the backup. It's looking like it's going to be Sam Darnold. I think that the 49ers actually gave up on Trey Lance, which I don't know. Because when Trey Lance got drafted, people were raving about this kid, but he can never see the field for some reason. Probably because he's not that good and they wasted a pick on him. But yeah, they will probably still keep 3 quarterbacks. But after this year, I feel like Trey Lance might do better in a new home, if that makes sense. This might be the shortest NBA segment ever. We're going to unload all my thoughts about James Harden and his foolishness. Let's get it. All right. So, the whole world is waiting to see if James Harden is going to pull another act of foolishness to force his way out of Philadelphia. Now, one thing I know about Philadelphia fans is they'll love the hell out of you, right? As long as you're putting in the effort, doing the best that you can to help bring the city a championship. The second that you don't want to be there and you start doing foolishness and you start giving up and no-showing and just raking it up, they're going to turn on you. And they've turned on James Harden. They're sick of him. And I understand. And they want him out of there too. But it's sad to see a man be such a diva and act so silly because he's not happy at a place that he went to by his own choice. This is James Harden, whether we like it or not. Everywhere he went, as soon as he decided, I'm not happy here, I'm going to get out regardless. Houston, we got fat James Harden. Brooklyn, he just wanted out because, well, if you look at James Harden in Brooklyn, you kind of understand why he wanted out. Kyrie was showing his rear end while James Harden was in Brooklyn. He was like, I ain't signed up. I did not sign up for all of this. And when you have two people on the same team who both can act like some teenage divas, it's an issue. That's not going to work. So in that retrospect, I don't blame him. But trying to force yourself out of a place that you chose to go in the first place because you're not happy anymore, that would work if this was marriage. This is not a marriage. You have a job. They're not obligated to do right by you. Now, there's another whole other side of this that I can go in about how whether Daryl Morey sold him something on good faith, on bad faith. Now, if Daryl Morey said out his mouth, or they had an agreement that I'm gonna opt in and you're gonna try to find me a trade for, find me a way to LA, and he's like, no, he did an about face. That's bad. That's unethical business practices, but it wasn't put on paper. So it really has no kind of relevancy other than the fact that it's unethical and employers do this to the employees all the time. It's called telling white lies. That's exactly what it's called. It's an act in bad faith, and it is unethical, but it does happen in the real world. So James Harden is just going to have to suck that up, the fact that he got and decided to agree to something without signing his name on a piece of paper. Like that, he's just going to have to live with that instead of trying to plot his way out of Philadelphia. I don't think, because the trade market right now in the NBA is dead silent. Like, Dame is not going to get moved. That's his fault too. James Harden is not going to get moved right now. And I believe that both Dame and James might be in the same uniform come the deadline time. Because these two acted a straight up fool this offseason. Whether it's being indecisive or just throwing shots or whatnot, it is what it is when it comes to them getting out of their city. But this is about James Harden. This is not about Damian Lillard. Now, because if Morey really did mislead and flat out lie to James, I understand why he would go out there and say, Daryl Morey's a liar and I'm not doing this and da-da-da-da-da-da. What are you going to do if you don't? I love it when y'all get emotional and you go out and say, I'm not doing this. Well, what are you going to do if you don't? You're going to give your money back? Because if you don't play for the Sixers and they don't find somewhere to trade you because they don't want to trade you and you don't want to play there, what are you going to do? Fake a whole bunch of injuries so you're always on the injury report? You're going to sell out like that? You're going to quit like that? Like, come on, man. Like with James Harden, like all of this kind of overshadows how good of a player this man is. All of his antics, all of this divaness, all of this foolishness, all of this shenanigans overshadows James Harden as a player. Because what are you going to do if Philadelphia can't get you out the door? Pout? Cry? Grow up. I'm not playing. Your best bet, because if you were smart, and if you're smart, you would know. If I'm trying to get out of here by the trade deadline, my best bet is to go play hard for the X amount of games before that deadline so I can get out of here. Not sit here on the record and pout and cry and make yourself look bad. Like, come on. Grow up. He is a 76ers right now. He is still a 76er right now. And there is nothing he can do about it. And I am so sorry to the 76er fans for having to deal with this. Now, with James Harden wanting to leave, some people have put that kind of bug out there about Joel Embiid leaving. Let him. Let his soft behind go somewhere. He can go somewhere else and stay on the ground all the time when he needs to be upright. I'm not even a Sixer fan, but I feel their pain. I know a few. So with James Harden and this foolishness, it's like we kind of forget, and it happens now in the middle of his career because he still acts up when he's not happy. Like a toddler. So when it comes to James Harden, like a lot of his good playing ability and all of that stuff gets overshadowed because of his behavior when he's not happy, because he throws a fit like a 2-year-old. And I hate it. But all he needed to do is grow up and be a professional instead of acting like my little sister. And that's just on that. And now, to play catch up with what's been going on in the WNBA. So, just to summarize it, Atlanta is struggling. The Liberty have the Aces number. Same old issues with the Fever. The Storm is slightly looking better, and more. But, regardless, let's get it. Let's get into the WNBA, shall we? So, the first team we're going to talk about is the Las Vegas Aces. And I have my notes right here. And it's fair to say that they may have met their match when it comes to the Liberty, whom seems to have their number. And here's the thing. The Liberty match up extremely well against them, and they've done one thing that I've seen very few people manage to do, or teams manage to do, which is shut A'ja Wilson down defensively. Like, defensively, they've held her, like the last time they played, they held A'ja Wilson to 9 points? That's arguably one of the MVPs of this league. Yes. And one thing that we keep seeing when it comes to this team is if you can slow down A'ja Wilson, this is a completely different team. This is a completely different team. And not to kind of brag, but I don't know why Candace Parker catches so much flack, but that's neither here. That's neither here or there. They're clearly missing Candace Parker. They have been out-rebounded in the last 2 of 3 of their games, and it's apparent. Their rebounding issues get exposed versus a good matchup such as the Liberty. And most people would not, like most casuals would not think Candace Parker is making a difference for as much flack as she catches. She does make a difference, clearly. Because that lady I love Candace Parker. She's a rebounding machine, and when she gets her shot falling, and she can shoot too, so we're not going like Candace Parker's ineffective. She's just a veteran, and some people just like to hate on the veterans. But whatever, she's effective. They're missing her, especially when it comes to boards. Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to talk about the Las Vegas Aces is they will be fine. They will figure out their rebounding situation, but their rebounding ratio needs to improve. Let's not overreact to this. They've lost 3 games, 2 to the same team. The Liberty are a very good team. They've been playing very well as of lately, even though they've lost a few games. But another team that I'm going to end up talking about, they lost to the Liberty. They beat the Liberty. So, without further ado, we're going to get into my next team, which is going to be the Phoenix Mercury. Defensively, this team is trouble, especially when the spacing is off. It looks weird. Offensively, they're very... Did you fall off the... Really? Whatever. Offensively, they are inconsistent. They aren't a very good shooting team. As a team. They have their moments, like they've had recently. Some games they've won despite not shooting well. That's something that they're going to have to either look into the offseason of trying to fix and correct, retool that roster. Because they ain't going to no playoffs. They 9-20-something. They ain't going nowhere but to the crib. And another reason for an issue for this team is silly turnovers. Turnovers are an issue for this team, period. But the silly ones, like I said, their record is 9-20-something for a reason. Some games I watch them, they can't stop turning the ball over. So there's that. Next team we're going to talk about the Atlanta Dream, who have been struggling. And I'm going to tell you why. Struggling mainly due to, here's the reasons why they're struggling. Poor three-point shooting, mediocre to below average field goal shooting, and the high amount of turnovers. But the emphasis is not on the turnovers here, it's on the shooting. I just said a few weeks ago that I like the way that when they get ball spacing and ball movement and the shots fall, I love the way this team looks. They've done a complete 360 of that as of today. Bad spacing and subpar movement, ball movement, has been killing this team. Bad spacing kills them, especially on defense. So, there's that. They also rebound well, and they haven't necessarily turned the ball over. Well, yeah, that's a contradictory. They have rebounded well, and they do compete, and they do fight well. But when your shots aren't necessarily falling when you need them to fall, it's hard. Like, it's very hard. Hi, Toot Toot. Next, we're going to talk about the Indiana Fever. And the first thing I want to say when talking about the Fever, because I feel like I've been doing this all season long when I talk about the WNBA, I want to reiterate my stance with this team. Aaliyah Boston was drafted into a hot-ass mess. And let's just be frank here. Of an organization. Let me finish the sentence. They've struggled with closing games pretty much all year. Hence the record, which is what? They ain't going to no playoffs either. Aaliyah Boston is a walking double-double. She's an all-star starter, I believe, and she's a rookie. They are wasting her time because they've been struggling with closing games all year. Again, the record. A lot of these games have been close as well. So it really don't make sense. Like, you have a walking double-double as a rookie, and at times, it looks like she's been ignored. Like, sometimes they look a hot mess. And I just want to put another emphasis on something else I'm about to say about this team. A lot of people may not like it. They are not well coached. They are poorly coached. When you can look at Aaliyah Boston calling for the ball, or looking at Aaliyah Boston wide open and you throw the other way, like, come on. That's just like people saying that Asia Wilson can't create offense for herself because of these last two games. No, it's not that, because she can create offense for herself. She struggled because they locked her up defensively. Like, but when it comes to Aaliyah Boston, it's not like the opportunities aren't there. They are there. They're just not taking them, and they're going elsewhere with the ball. I don't know if that's purposeful. I don't know if there's favoritism in the way that they draw up their plays. But they're poorly coached. They perform poorly at times, especially when they need to step it up in a close game in the fourth quarter. I mean, they're not a very well organized team. And the last thing I'm going to talk about for this segment is I'm going to talk about the Dallas Wings. Because I feel like the Dallas Wings need to be given their flowers now. Especially before, if what happens to the Dallas Wings happens the way I feel like it's going to happen, I want to be on board saying this now. When this team is on, they are a tough matchup for pretty much anybody. The Aces included. Now, they haven't beaten the Aces yet, but they have been close with the Aces. They've beaten the Liberty. Sato. Her, Miss Sabally, not Nayara. Her sister, Sato. She walks and breathes a 20-point game like it's nothing. And she can really stretch the floor. Natasha Howard can ball as well. She had a 25-point triple-double spoiled by a bad loss versus Chicago. They matched up and beat the Liberty well, too. But one thing about this team is why they don't have a better record is they tend to struggle keeping pace mid-game. Second quarter, third quarter. But they do so well with ball security that they... But the reason why that their record is the way that it is... What are you doing? Is that they struggle mid-game. They struggle to keep it going. So I feel like once this team consistently plays a complete game for more than one game at a time, they could be very dangerous. They could be a dark horse this year if they get their act together and be more consistent. But yeah, I love the Dallas Wings and where they're going. And now we are at Jory's timeout session, and today we're revealing some plans, having a conversation about confidence and more. Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of Jory's timeout session, and I'm going to start with a brief message about confidence, and then we're going to reveal some plans. So, because it's been something that's been kind of heavy on my heart. Because I do struggle with my self-confidence at times. Well, not at times. A lot of the times. I have anxiety. I have a whole bunch of other stuff. I got issues. I wish I had as much money as I had issues. But that's neither here nor there. My confidence is getting better. And I want to thank it's a few people that have helped me grow my confidence. Like the people over at Sports Empire Network, they taking a chance on me. Like I wasn't on there this morning because I was throwing up at 7 o'clock. But if every Wednesday you can find me on the Coffee and Sports Morning Show. I'm starting to do shorts and reels now. I'm starting to get more comfortable on camera. Like, you can do it. Right? If anybody needs to, I used to hate, I would never, it's going to take me a minute for me to get comfortable behind a camera like I am behind a mic. Because I can sit and look at the wall and just spew out whatever, right? But looking in a camera is different. My confidence is growing each and every day. And I have a few people that I want to thank about that. I could thank Coach about that. I could thank all the people that support me and tell me that I need to get my butt in gear and get it going. Yeah, but you guys know who you are. Once I think about names right now, because I'm trying to go off the bat because I don't have none of this written down. But you guys know who you are, and I just want to thank you. But confidence. Once you build enough confidence, like me, my situation right now and my confidence, it's kind of affecting my personal life in a way. To not say too much, there might be this guy or something that I might be interested in, and I can't talk to him about that. I could talk to that man about anything else. But in your confidence, it carries you a long way. But some people, you don't understand that when you have your confidence shot as a child, like mine was, or by a person, by multiple people, it takes a long time to gain that type of confidence back. Because I wasn't always this timid. I was more reserved. But timid, nah. And once the things that have happened to me started happening, that kind of did it for my confidence as well. So it's once I had to heal, right? I had to completely heal. And there's some things that I haven't discussed with certain people. And that's perfect. Not perfect. That's fine. When I'm ready to discuss it without getting all anxious and unconfident, I will discuss it. But me internally dealing with the things that I've dealt with and putting that emotional baggage away, like, and destroying it has helped my confidence by bounds. But when it comes to this situation, my confidence when it comes to men is horrible. Like, it's horrible. And I know why, and I'm not going to talk about it, but it was really on my mind to say this, because I don't know who's out there, but you can build your confidence. I'm working on building mine each day. Hopefully by the time I get the balls to talk to this dude, because but when I get the courage to talk to him, I'll let y'all know about it. I'll let you know how it goes. But yeah, you can build on your confidence. I can't give you any tips because I'm still working on mine, but I just had to do it. Like, I literally, like, when I was making those shorts and stuff and the reels and things like that, I was sitting in my car. I just had to sit there and do it. And once I get real comfortable behind a camera, as far as, and this is where we're going for the next part of this segment. As far as I get comfortable, as more as I get comfortable on camera, we're going to start bringing Georgia Sports Stories to life. Like, I'm going to start going live more. I'm going to start doing live shows and video podcasts and other things. I have another show. Actually, I have at least 2 more shows planned. One, I can't tell you about yet, because I don't have the whole inner workings yet. But another one of these shows is one of my personal brain children. Like, I'm working with somebody else. And you'll get more details about this next week, because we got to talk about the whole heebie-jeebies and all the setups and everything. But I'm working with somebody else. If you know me, and you know me from, like, the network and the group chat and whatnot, you know exactly what's going on. But I'm working with somebody else, and we're going to start bringing a live video podcast to you guys soon. So I'll get more dates on and stuff on that when we work out all the kinks, but that's coming. So be on the lookout for that. But that has to do with confidence too, because before this, I was not confident on camera. Before Coffee and Sports, I was not confident on camera, other than taking a selfie when I felt like taking it because I was fine. But that's neither here nor there. Confidence, you can build on it. Just do little things. Like, if you're a content creator and you want to get more on camera, just do it. If you're an artist, just put your artwork out there. Somebody's going to like it. That's something, like, even when it came to this podcasting thing, I had to struggle to realize. Somebody's going to like it. For me to even pick up a microphone or pick up my phone and download the whole app for me to do this, it took a lot. So, like, my confidence has literally went from leaps and bounds to where it is today, and I'm still growing. So anybody who's out there who's struggling with their confidence, I feel for you, because I still struggle with mine. I can't talk to a dude to save my life. But you can make big steps towards progress, little things. And it'll build you up towards that big thing. But yes, that. And stay tuned for bigger things with Georgia Sports Stories. I got a lot planned. And NFL season, we're going to start breaking down. Like, I feel like because of football season, I'm going to start phasing out the NBA. We'll return to the NBA in January. Because football season, these episodes might be an hour and 30 minutes plus. So, because I'm a football girl. And we're bringing back Jory's Jacked Up Tears. I might rename the tiers. I had to consult Chat GPT for that. But we're bringing back Jory's Jacked Up Tears. We're bringing back Hot Hands, Hot Takes. We're bringing back Hot Seat Watch. It'll be fun. It's going to be nice, entertaining episodes. But I don't want to speak more on that for right now. We'll just get to closing. Y'all know the drill. You've reached the conclusion of this week's edition of Jory Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host, Jory, and hopefully y'all liked what you heard. If you liked what you heard, feel free to follow the podcast on social media. If you're on YouTube, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Tune in next week as we break down the AFC West and I give some of the final predictions for this preseason going into the regular season in the NFL. Thank y'all for tuning in today, and I will see y'all later.